February 14th, 2000, Valentine's Day. In the quiet town of Shelby, North Carolina, a 9-year-old girl named Asha Degree got out of bed before dawn, packed her school book bag, and walked into a storm. Her parents were asleep. Her brother, just a few feet away, never heard her leave. Two motorists later reported seeing a small girl walking alone along Highway 18 around 4 a.m. And then nothing. No trace, no clue, no clear reason why. She left behind a room full of toys, a family that adored her, and a mystery that has haunted North Carolina for nearly a quarter century. This is the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin, and tonight we open the file on one of the most heartbreaking missing persons cases in modern American history, the disappearance of Asha Degree. Asha Degree was a fourth grader at Falston Elementary School. Bright, curious, a little shy, she loved reading, drawing, and playing basketball. She shared a bedroom with her older brother, O'Brien, and lived in a modest home with her parents, Harold and Aquila. By all accounts, hers was a loving and structured household. No abuse, no drugs, no trouble at school. The Degrees were a working-class family, close-knit and church-going. The kind of family where kids stayed indoors, homework was done on time, and the front door was always locked at night. But something shifted, subtly, on the weekend of February 12th. Asha had a basketball game. She fouled out early, and she was visibly upset. Her team lost. She blamed herself, and she cried on the sidelines. Was it just a normal childhood meltdown, or the first sign that something was off? The next day, February 13th, was a Sunday. The Degrees went to church as usual. Asha seemed fine, quiet, but not unusual. She did her homework, went to bed around 8 p.m. That night, a storm rolled in. Around 12:30 a.m., the power went out briefly. At some point, Asha's mother checked on the kids, and both were asleep. But between 2:30 and 3:15 a.m., Asha got out of bed. She put on jeans, a white long-sleeved shirt, and black sneakers. She packed her book bag with a few belongings, including a Tweety Bird purse and her favorite book. And then she walked out into the dark, into a storm, into mystery. By 6:30 a.m., when Aquila went to wake the children for school, Asha was gone. Her bed was empty, her shoes were gone, and the door was locked behind her. There was no sign of forced entry, no note, and no reason at all why a 9-year-old child would disappear without a sound in the middle of the night. By 6:45, Harold Degree called 911, and by 7, local law enforcement had begun a full-scale search. But what they would find only deepened the mystery. By sunrise on February 14, 2000, Shelby was waking up to an urgent reality. The child had vanished, seemingly by her own choice, and no one knew why. Officers began canvassing the neighborhood. Bloodhounds were brought in. Neighbors were questioned. The Degrees were stunned, grieving, but cooperative. They could not explain it. No signs of trauma. No history of running away. No sign that something like this could ever happen. Within hours, volunteers joined the search. Hundreds walked the woods, the fields, and the roads near the Degree home. But by mid-morning, it was clear Asha wasn't nearby. Then came the first break. Two separate motorists, both long-haul truckers, called in with the same eerie report. Around 4 a.m., both men said they saw a small figure walking along Highway 18, roughly a mile from Asha's home. She was wearing light-colored clothing, alone, and in the rain. One of the drivers turned around, thinking something wasn't right, but when he approached, the girl ran off into the woods, and no one saw her again. Law enforcement took the report seriously. They lined up with the time Asha would have left the house. And with each passing hour, the case grew more unsettling. This wasn't a random abduction from her room. She'd left on her own, voluntarily. But why would a 9-year-old walk into the night during a storm, alone, with no jacket, no flashlight, no plan? In the days that followed, search teams made a chilling discovery. In the storage shed of a nearby business, searchers found a single item believed to belong to Asha, one of her hair bows. It suggested she may have stopped there to rest or hide, but beyond that, nothing. No other trace, no clothing, no footprints. Police expanded the search radius. They checked registered sex offenders, combed through tips, and re-interviewed everyone in her school and neighborhood. But nothing pointed to a suspect, a motive, or a reason for Asha leaving. The national media caught wind of the story. The FBI joined the investigation. By the end of the first week, more than 9,000 man-hours had been spent searching. Billboards went up, posters were printed, but Asha Degree had seemingly vanished into thin air. For a brief moment, there was hope. Maybe she'd run away and gotten scared. Maybe she was hiding, unsure how to get home. Maybe someone would spot her and bring her back. But as days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months, that hope began to fade. And then, 18 months later, a discovery. One that raised more questions than it answered. 18 months after Asha Degree vanished, the case had grown cold. There were no new leads, no suspects, no sightings. Then, in August 2001, more than a year and a half later, a contractor made a chilling discovery. While clearing land off Highway 18 in Burke County, about 26 miles north of Shelby, he found a black plastic trash bag. Inside was a book bag. It had been carefully wrapped, buried, hidden. The bag was confirmed to be Asha's. Inside were several of her personal items, books, papers, and the Tweety Bird wallet. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, no additional clues, but the location of the bag raised even more questions. Asha clearly didn't walk 26 miles on foot. Someone at some point moved her belongings and tried to conceal them. The discovery split the case into two realities. The first, that Asha had left home voluntarily, that she may have been running away, perhaps lured by someone. The second, that she was intercepted and taken, that whoever buried that book bag knew exactly what they were doing. One theory is that Aisha had been groomed, possibly by someone she met at school, church, or through a chance interaction. In 2000, internet safety wasn't part of everyday conversation. Children were still considered safe if the front door was locked. But there was no evidence of abuse, no notes in her journal, no behavior suggesting she was planning to leave permanently. Others believe she may have been tricked, told to meet someone, convinced it was a game or a surprise. Whatever happened, someone likely picked her up and someone buried her belongings. Over the years, the FBI and the State Bureau of Investigation have followed hundreds of leads, none that led to Aisha. In 2016, the case was reclassified as a potential abduction. In 2020, detectives searched an area near where the book bag was found, acting on a tip, but nothing was recovered. In 2021, investigators said they had received new information, a possible suspect, but they haven't released names or details. And the degrees, they still wait. Each February, Aisha's parents hold a walk in her honor, from their home to the sign that marks where she was last seen. It's called the Walk for Aisha. It reminds the town, the state, and the world that this case is not forgotten. Asha Degree would be 33 years old today. Her room is still intact, her photos still on the mantle, her story still unfinished. Because the hardest part about this case is that nothing was ever found. Not a body, not a confession, just silence. It's been more than 2 decades since Asha Degree vanished. 24 Valentine's days have come and gone, but her room still looks the same. Her bed is still made, her favorite stuffed animal sits by the window. Her family still waits. Harold and Aquila never gave up. They became advocates, investigators, and reminders that their daughter was more than just a cold case. Every year they organized the Walk for Aisha, a 9-mile trek from their home to the billboard at Highway 18, the place where she was last seen. They've spoken at vigils, appealed to the public, sat with FBI agents. They believe still that someone out there knows something. They've never changed their phone number, just in case she calls. Aisha's case is rare, extremely rare. Children her age, especially from safe, stable homes, do not just disappear. And almost never without leaving notes, signs of behavioral changes. That's what makes this case so painful for investigators. There is so little to work with. One moment, Asha Degree was asleep in her bed. The next, she was a ghost on a highway. And then she was gone. There is no evidence of violence, no sign of life, just that book bag and a trash bag 26 miles away. Aisha's story remains in our consciousness for one reason. It's every parent's fear, wrapped in the silence of the unknown. She wasn't a runaway in the traditional sense. She wasn't a child lost to a war zone or a corrupt institution. She lived in a good home, in a quiet town, surrounded by people that loved her dearly. And yet, she walked into the dark and was never seen again. Her family craves resolution. They need answers. But some stories just don't close. They echo. Asha Degree should have been home for breakfast that morning. Instead, her name became a question for nearly a quarter century. If you have any information about the disappearance of Asha Degree, please contact the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office or the FBI. Tips can be made anonymously, and even the smallest detail could matter. This has been the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin. Thank you for joining us as we reopen this case file. And remember, not all archives are dusty. Some are still waiting in the dark.